Hey gamers, we're back with another episode of Let's Create a Competitive Card Game. In this episode, I'll be coming up with the turn structure. So let's get started. Alright, so last episode we came up with the Getting Started section of the rulebook. Now this section does just that. It teaches a new player how to get started playing this game. So it contains things such as how much life does a player start the game with, how many cards are allowed within a deck, how many copies of a card are allowed in a deck, and it also has the setup that must occur prior to actually starting the gameplay. Now the steps to the setup are: first, both players have to choose their class card and place it face up in the play area, followed by searching their deck for a companion card if they want and placing it face down in the play area. The next step is both players have to shuffle their deck, and their opponent may then shuffle and or cut their deck. Now, something different about this game is the deciding of who plays first. So the idea is that this will be a competitive or a tournament focused game. So what I came up with is the lower ranking player will actually decide who plays first, so they can decide to play or pass. Now, in a friendly game, players can randomly decide who plays first. So after deciding who plays first, both players get to draw their starting hand. And for now, we'll say that is 6 cards. After that, there is a mulligan within this game. And the way the mulligan works is during your first mulligan, you can put any number of cards on the bottom of your deck and draw the same amount of cards. Every mulligan after that, you draw one less card. So the idea is that there is a set amount of mulligans in the game. And actually looking at this now, technically there wouldn't be a set amount. Let's see. Yeah, this doesn't seem like it would work the way this is written. So essentially, you draw one less card. So if you only put one card on the bottom of your deck, then you wouldn't draw a card. So I think I need to reword this. So let's say, let's go ahead and say a minimum of 2 cards. And I think actually by saying minimum of 2 cards, that now makes it so that you have a maximum of 6 mulligans. So you mulligan your, let's say you mulligan your entire hand, you draw 6 new cards. And if you want to mulligan it again, you have to do a minimum of 2 cards and you draw 1 less. So now you only have 5 more mulligans before you only have 1 card left. And something else is, I said that you put the cards on the bottom of your deck. So technically you can mulligan 5 times to try to get the perfect hand. Of course your hand will keep getting smaller and smaller, so this will be something to play around with. Maybe I'll say that the deck is shuffled, but I want to play test this way first and then decide if the deck should be shuffled after mulligan. So after you mulligan, both players can distribute their starting ability points. So in this game, you will start with 3 ability points for now, and you can distribute them amongst your skill points and talent points. So you can put all of them in your skill points, or you can put all in your talent points, or you could put 2 in one and 1 in the other. It's however you want to distribute them. Now, after distributing your ability points, the actual gameplay now starts with the first player's turn. So let's go ahead and make this new section. Let's just call it turn structure. And let's go ahead and bold it and center it. So when I was coming up with the game concept, I mentioned that I wanted a free flow structure. So a free flow structure means that you are free to do things on your turn the way you want to do them. So let's take Yu-Gi-Oh as an example. So Yu-Gi-Oh has a set turn structure. You have your start of turn followed by your main phase 1, then your combat phase, your main phase 2, and then the end of turn. Now, in each of those phases, there are specific things you are allowed to do. So after, let's say after main phase 2, you can't then conduct your combat phase. So in a free flow game, if we're still using Yu-Gi-Oh as an example, you would be free to start your turn, do some combat, and then play spell and traps, followed by maybe going your combat again. So that is kind of the idea behind a free flow structure. Now, there does have to be some phases within the structure, but the way the turn is played out can still be free flow. So let's go ahead and start. So the first phase is the start phase. And I'll mention that I'm not sure if I'm going to call these the start, turn, and end phase. They are pretty simple, so there's a high probability that I will keep them the same. Now, what happens during the start phase? So what I want to say is the very first thing that has to happen is that damage from previous turns is removed. So yes, in this game, damage will stay until the end of the turn. So I'll say first, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bold this and capitalize it. Let's just say all damage done to cards on previous turns is removed. Now, let's say next, actually, I should also mention that damage done to life, as cards do have life, damage done to life stays on cards. So let's say something like any damage done to a card's life remains. Alright, now after doing this first, I want to say that let's say that you can draw a card, gain a skill or talent point, and use triggers at the start of your turn. So let's say something like, how should I word this? Let's say you can draw a card, gain an ability point, and again, ability points are skill points or talent points. And let's say, and use any effect that triggers at the start of your turn. And let's say that these actions can be done in any order. And that's specific to the drawing of a card, gaining an ability point, and using effects that trigger at the start of your turn. So the very first thing you have to do is remove all damage. And maybe I'll make a pre-start phase that says this. Yeah, maybe I'll do that, but I'll leave it here for now. So now, the idea behind the start phase and saying that these actions can be done in any order is, let's say at the start of your turn, you have several triggers that happen at the start of your turn. So with a free flow system, You can draw your card first, have a trigger go off, followed by gaining an ability point and then having the rest of your triggers go off. Or you can have all your triggers go off, gain an ability point, then draw a card. You can do your start of turn or your start phase however you want to do it. And something else to note is that you do choose the order that triggers occur in. So I'll go ahead and put that. So yeah, that's the idea of the start phase. The next phase is the turn phase. And the turn phase will be literally everything else that can occur during a turn. So you can play cards, conduct battles, use effects, etc. So let's just say that. And I'll also say that these actions can be done in any order. And let's also say in as many times as you can. So during your turn phase, you may play a card, conduct a battle with one of your cards, followed by using some effect, playing another card, doing another battle. So it's really free flow. Whereas, since we used Yu-Gi-Oh as an example previously, we will say that in Yu-Gi-Oh, all of your combat has to be done at the exact same turn. You can't play a spell card and then, let's say, attack with one monster followed by playing another spell card and then attacking again. Not unless that spell card is a quick play card. But you can't attack and then play a normal spell and then attack again. So in this game, you can do your turn phase however you want. Now the last phase within this game will be let's call it the end phase. Now the end phase will be after you've done all of anything you wanted to do during your turn phase. During the end phase, the only thing that a player can do during their end phase is, let's say, they can choose how triggers occur. So any triggers that say they happen at the end of your turn, you can choose how they occur. So let's say any effect that triggers any effects that trigger at the end of your turn happens. And again, we'll say you may choose the order. And let's say after all effects have resolved, let's say your opponent can actually respond to the actual end of your turn. And in a future episode, I will elaborate on the action system within this game. So when can you conduct a response? And we'll say when your opponent is finished responding to the end of your turn ends. So yeah, this will be the turn structure in this game. So you have a start phase where all damage is removed, and then you can draw a card, gain an ability point, or use start of turn triggers in any order you want, and you decide how those triggers, or you decide the order those triggers occur in. Followed by the turn phase where you can play cards, use effects, and conduct battles as many times as you want in any order which you want. And after that is the end phase where only the effects which trigger at the end of your turn can occur, followed by your opponent having an opportunity to respond to the end of your turn. So yeah, this will be the end of this video, and what I actually want to do going forward with these videos is keep them between 15 and say 20 minutes with a hard stop at 30 minutes. So be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that other stuff. Thanks.